There are very many fundamental issues around this intervention, and nobody must attempt to deflect the discourse away from those fundamentals. So I'll come to the funding issue. But before I do, you see, the statement by Dr. Abdul Fattah Musa that we are ready, we are not ready. Where is the force commander? There's no force commander. There's no force commander. Of course, I know the processes that after this meeting, they will recommend a short list of, officers. And then the Mediation and Security Council and the Mediation and Security Council now is conflated. It should have been a body of 9 out of the 15. From inception, all 15 said no. So that all 15 of us at all times will constitute the Mediation and Security Council, and then will also be the authority. You see where some of these inconsistencies are. There are many fundamental political dynamics that I cannot talk about now, But there is no force commander. It's not been announced. And if it's not been announced, there is no leader for any intervention. So the question that we are ready is debatable because we have not exhausted the internal mechanisms for now launching the operation. That's one point that we need to bear in mind. The other fundamental issue is that, Alfred, war is an immoral activity of man because you are going to kill. And this intervention is the closest that you can have to war. We are going to kill human beings. So therefore, in law, we say that the cause for that war must be just. And I'm glad that we have a lawyer with you, jus bello or us bello or whatever they call it, just cause. My argument is that the cause for this intervention is not just. So when Dr. Abdul Fattah Musa is saying that we went to Gambia 2017 and nobody raised any noise, be that as it may. In that 2017, in Benin, there was an unconstitutional change of our accession to power that was evolving by the sitting president. That was the same 2017. ECOWAS didn't say anything. Did we hear ECOWAS talk about the change of the Beninois constitution? We didn't hear that. Come forward 3 years later, or 4 years later, in Côte d'Ivoire, the sitting president also changed this constitution. Come several years later, in Senegal, the president attempted to change the constitution. So the unconstitutional change of government or the zero tolerance for accession to power via unconstitutional means is broad, is either civilian or military. So the question is, why is ECOWAS, being so rattled by this coup in Niger? We need to find the answers. Now, on the fundamental question let me conclude that if you have these unconstitutional leaders, because Togo has signaled ECOWAS that it's not in favor, you see it. So now the numbers have even dwindled. The Lusophones, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, have categorically said they are not part of it. They're not going to be part of it. Then we have the 4 who are under sanction. Then you have Togo, who is saying that I don't support this idea, although it's not come out, So the numbers have dwindled. But out of the remaining numbers, you have 4 who are not Democrats, or 3 who are not Democrats: Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, and Benin. Now, these ones who have already violated the ECOWAS constitution cannot be part of any council that takes the decision to go and restore democracy in Niger. And therefore, for Ghana, the cause is not just, because he who comes to court with equity or for equity or whatever must have
come
clean
with
hands.
Clean hands, indeed.
And yes. 3 of the leaders don't have clean hands. So Ghana must think twice before it puts its foot into this kind of, or its finger into this kind of abrewers food and so on and so forth. For the funding mechanism, what I know, we are talking about the ECOWAS standby force. So ECOWAS established a peace fund, and the peace fund is to be capitalized from taxes or levies on imports and exports within member states. I'm not an economist, but my understanding is that from our books every year, member states or Ghana will determine that exports and imports amounted to so much. So per the ECOWAS arrangement, I think it's 0.5 or whatever it is. This is the 0.5. But the 0.5 is not automatic. I believe that there will be other processes of channeling the 0.5 of that levy to ECOWAS. Now, if the 5 million purportedly paid to the ECOWAS is part of this import-export levy, that's fine. But if it is additional, then we need to raise questions. Indeed, I don't believe that even all member states of ECOWAS are paid up. At all times within the African Union and ECOWAS, there are people who don't pay. They can't pay. You see what I mean? So given our current circumstances, these economic exigencies, does it make sense to send that money to go and fight a war? Now, when you are in your house, and I want to be a bit, indigenous here, because village wisdom is more than the wisdom that we obtain through universities. My due respect to Professor Jampo, you can go to school and have the highest degree. If you don't have village wisdom, I think you are missing a lot.
A great deal.
A great deal life.
You see,
so
but
if you can't, you can't feed your people. What do you call this arrangement? Free feeding or free food or whatever is in arrears. Get Fund has been collateralized. ESLA has been collateralized. The Bank of Ghana is in debt. Does it make sense? Where is the priority? You see what I mean? So this democracy and this thing that you've been given the authority doesn't mean that you take decisions that largely may not be popular with the population. One of your sister stations, I know we're going to come back to the nitty-gritty of the issues, but a sister station did a survey. Granted that it's not a scientific survey. 82% Ghanaians who were sampled said that they are not in favor, but they are against. You see what I mean? Because their stomachs are empty, their stomachs are zero. That is where the emphasis is. It's about national interest and national security. And in both of these domains, that citizen who is a Ghanaian is at the center. If that citizen is not faring well, then the national interest is also not faring well. So don't let us hide behind arguments and so on and say that, well, look, I've read these ECOWAS protocols, right? The treaty, the protocols, which includes the 1999 mechanism, the what we call the ECPA, ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework 2000. Alfred, anybody who thinks I'm telling lies must go and read these documents. Intervention is not mentioned. You find peace building, you find enforcement of sanctions, you find preemptive deployment, like, what do you call it? Like Gambia. Gambia was a preemptive deployment. It was not an enforcement action. You see what I mean?
Yes. But
it's not mentioned anywhere because committing troops under international law is a serious enterprise.
And in fact, it is the seriousness of it that wanted to find out, for instance, how long it's going to take to, for instance, marshal if ECOWAS decides that they're going to deploy this standby force. The commissioner talks about they are battle ready, they are there. But you dispute that particular position and the element of cost. How much is it going to impact on the books of the member countries? Yes.
We are talking about democracy, right? So sometimes we learn from those who are practicing democracy elsewhere. If America had been us and ECOWAS had been NATO, by this time, the Congress of the United States would have been asking its president to bring the arrangements to the Congress. They would want to know how much it is going to cost America before they grant the congressional approval for the appropriation of that budget. The same must apply here. I'm not a politician, I'm not a political scientist like Professor Jampo, but my village wisdom tells me that you cannot have an armed forces per your constitution established solely or primarily for the maintenance of your territorial integrity and safeguarding of your sovereignty. And then you want to take those armed forces outside of your country, and you think that it is right and it is appropriate to take those troops without coming to parliament. Which democracy functions like that? Clinton and Obama and the sitting Trump and sitting Biden don't have that prerogative. So the government must go to parliament. That's what I'm suggesting. And indeed, if it is true that we have not domesticated this so-called 1999 mechanism or whatever protocol that we are basing on to go to Niger, that even makes the case more serious. You see what I mean? Because when I joined the army, I joined in order that I will protect, I'll help to protect, not me and others will help to protect and defend the country. So when we are going, if it's peacekeeping, fine. If it is peace building, fine. If it is enforcement of sanctions, fine. These are specifically mentioned in all the ECOWAS documents that relate to the use of force. Intervention is not there. So what is happening is that ECOWAS is hiding behind this omnibus clause, which says another operations. Now, other operations cannot include suicide. You see what I mean? It cannot include suicidal operations. So if it is not mentioned, then we need to go through the steps. As far as timing is concerned, the ECOWAS standby force arrangement says that for this operation, and I think Ghanaians need to understand, this is a scenario 5 operation. A scenario 5 operation is a complex peace operation with spoilers. In other words, there is somebody out there who is going to fight you, who is going to oppose you. Now, for that operation, you need 90 days to prepare. There are good reasons why in 2003, and I was a member, the only African member, together with 2 UN, I think 3 UN, who sat in Addis Ababa and crafted the African Standby Force Protocol. Be that okay, I was then, learning the tricks. But I've been very, very conversant with the African Standby Force arrangements. There are good reasons why if you are going to go on such an operation, don't rush. Take time and get all your capabilities, all your assets together. Let the men and the women get to know themselves and know their leader, and raise their morale. Make sure that everything they need is going to be there. So you don't go and halfway, you get stuck. Okay. That is not where we are, in my mind. We are nowhere near that. And therefore, I see, and I find it very, very unfortunate, that some of the statements coming out are actually propagandists from the ECOWAS angle. And ECOWAS must not be playing propaganda. ECOWAS must be putting facts on the table for us as citizens of ECOWAS to digest. There's so much inconsistency, incoherence, and so on. I mean, how can we, in the middle of, this black ant, which, stings very sharply. You don't stand in that and then be picking the ants. You stand outside. Yes. We cannot at this stage be talking about, and I'm referring to the Vice President's speech yesterday at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. Were we not in ECOWAS when since 2012, the Tuaregs rebelled and almost got close to Bamako? What we did was to sit in Accra and establish the Accra Initiative in 2017. Now, 6 years down the line, 2023, you are now seeing the reason why we must deploy forces to go and counter terrorism. If we had done that, because my study tells me that the whole tensions around management of the security of the countries under threat from terrorism is part of the coups. You see, so let's get serious. Governance is a serious issue. You see what I mean? Let's get serious. Let's have foresight. Don't let us act as if we are tin gods and we can do anything that we want. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen.